ExxonMobil is one of the largest players in the energy industry. But how did they get so freakishly big? What is it that they actually do? And how does their future look like? Let's take a closer look at an oil supermajor. ExxonMobil's story starts in 1870. John D. Rockefeller and several partners incorporate the Standard Oil Company in Ohio, USA. In the early years of the company, Rockefeller created a highly optimized system of governance. This led to Standard Oil quickly outgrowing its rivals and eventually just buying out the competition. Those which were deemed to be inefficient got closed and the others were added to the fold. Standard Oil started to snowball. Eventually, due to its size, the company was able to negotiate better terms with railroad operators, lowering its transportation costs, further increasing its advantage. The snowball didn't stop. US states tried to combat the ever-increasing size and influence of Standard Oil by legislation, but Rockefeller and his associates found creative ways around them. In 1882, they combined their companies, spread across dozens of states under a single group of trustees. The largest companies within the trust were Standard Oil of New Jersey and Standard Oil of New York. In 1896, John D. Rockefeller retired from Standard Oil to focus on philanthropy. But he remained a major shareholder and would go on to become one of the richest people in modern history. By 1904, Standard Oil controlled 91% of oil refinement and 85% of final oil sales in the United States. Finally, in the year 1911, the US Supreme Court ruled Standard Oil to be an illegal monopoly. It was ordered to split up into 34 individual companies, two of which were Standard Oil of New Jersey, also known as Jersey Standard, and Standard Oil of New York, also known as SoCoNy. Let's take a look at Jersey Standard first. Over the next decades, Jersey Standard kept growing significantly. In 1919, it acquired a 50% share in Humble Oil and Refining, a Texas oil producer, and in the following years it expanded its operations to Colombia and Venezuela. In 1926, they brought out a new blend of fuel under the trade name Esso. Throughout the following 50 years, Jersey Standard kept expanding their international influence by acquiring assets in Mexico, which were later nationalized, by cooperation with Royal Dutch Shell in the Netherlands, by acquiring interests in the Arab American Oil Company, also known as Aramco, and by buying coal assets within the US. In 1967, Jersey Standard's first Alaska well started production at Granite Point. 5 years later, in 1972, Jersey Standard officially changed its name to Exxon, which, in the 70s, began to expand its exploration and production into the North Sea, the Gulf of Mexico, Africa, and Asia. In 1989, the Exxon Valdez oil tanker ran aground on Bligh Reef, Alaska, spilling more than 11 million US gallons of crude oil into the sea. It was the second largest oil spill in US history. Let's see what Standard Oil of New York, or SoCoNy, was up to. After the Standard Oil breakup of 1911, SoCoNy also continued to grow heavily. In 1931, it merged with the Vacuum Oil Company to form SoCoNy Vacuum, which, over the years, ran into trouble with US lawmakers several times due to repeated infringements against monopoly and antitrust law. In 1955, SoCoNy Vacuum was renamed ExxonMobil Oil Company, and in 1963, the name was simplified to Mobil. In 1975, Mobil constructed Barrel A in the North Sea, the first offshore oil production platform made out of concrete. And in 1984, Mobil took over Superior Oil, which was the country's largest oil producer at the time. In 1998, Exxon and Mobil, the successors of Jersey Standard and SoCoNy, merged, once again forming the largest oil company and the third largest company in the world behind General Electric and Microsoft. ExxonMobil started to sell its US retail stations in 2008, instead preferring a franchise model, and acquired XTO Energy, a company focused on unconventional oil and gas production like fracking, in 2010. Since then, ExxonMobil continued to expand its national and international operations across the globe, never stopping to grow. Today, ExxonMobil remains a giant in the energy industry and is considered a vertically integrated energy company with multiple sectors: upstream, downstream, and chemical products. The upstream business is where the entire oil and gas value chain begins, with the search for new oil and gas fields across the globe, a process called exploration. The first step in modern exploration is understanding and evaluating the geologic setting, called a play. This is done by highly sophisticated technological procedures like gravimetric or magnetometric surveys. If the play indicates the presence of oil or gas, called a lead, the next step is obtaining access to the potential reserves, usually in the form of a lease. Next is determining where to drill and completing a successful discovery or wildcat well. If successful, the additional reserves are added to the portfolio of the company and the development of the operation can begin. Currently, ExxonMobil holds exploration and drilling licenses for on- and offshore acreages in 22 countries on 6 continents. The next step in the upstream segment after the discovery of oil and gas fields is resource extraction. The upstream division therefore also includes the operation of oil rigs and platforms for ExxonMobil's own leases, as well as for third parties like nationalized oil fields. At the moment, ExxonMobil is actively operating and extracting in 8 out of the 22 countries that it holds leases in. In the contiguous US, ExxonMobil operates production sites in 5 states: California, Texas, Wyoming, Louisiana, and Alabama, as well as in the Gulf of Mexico and offshore Santa Barbara County. The biggest of these operations is the Permian Basin in Texas, an enormous shale oil deposit. Additionally, in Alaska, ExxonMobil has stakes and operations in Point Thompson, Prudhoe Bay, which is the largest oil field in North America, Endicott, and the Kuparuk River unit. In Canada, ExxonMobil has a 70% stake in Imperial Oil, one of Canada's largest refiners and a major producer of crude oil and natural gas. Together, they own and operate multiple oil and gas operations in the Canadian Atlantic offshore, as well as oil sand operations in Alberta, where they mostly produce bitumens, which are used as a binder for asphalt. In Nigeria, ExxonMobil's upstream affiliates operate several joint venture projects and deepwater production sharing contracts. Through its technological collaboration with the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, ExxonMobil also is active in the United Arab Emirates, where it's supporting in the operation of Upper Zakum, the world's second largest offshore oil field. In Qatar, the Al Khaleej gas project is the result of a historic partnership linking the state of Qatar, Qatar Petroleum, and ExxonMobil. In the country of Indonesia, ExxonMobil holds a 45% stake in the Banyu Urip oil field, which is operated as a joint venture with other local firms. Banyu Urip is producing over 25% of Indonesia's crude oil. In Papua New Guinea, Exxon holds 37% in the Papua LNG joint venture and is responsible for the construction and operation of the project. And finally, down under in Australia, ExxonMobil operates offshore platforms in multiple oil fields in Bass Strait, among them Kingfish, Australia's largest oil field. Exxon also operates the Gorgon and Changio fields off the northwestern coast of Australia, which produce 50 million tons of LNG per year. After oil and gas get extracted from the ground, they also leave the upstream segment of ExxonMobil. The next link in the value chain is transportation. The logistics part of the oil and gas business sometimes is classified as the midstream segment. Oftentimes, and also in ExxonMobil's case, the midstream segment is simply included in the downstream division though. On the transportation side of things, ExxonMobil is also heavily integrated. They own several oil tankers through their subsidiary Sea River Maritime, which also handles shipping contracts for the group. Additionally, the ExxonMobil Pipeline Company builds, owns and operates more than 16,000 miles of on- and offshore pipelines across Canada and the United States. We now know that ExxonMobil is able to find, develop, extract and transport oil and gas worldwide. What's next? The answer is refining. ExxonMobil owns and operates 19 refineries across North America, Europe and Asia, where they turn crude oil and gas into a multitude of products. These products can roughly be sorted into 3 categories: energy products like diesel, jet fuel or gas, chemical products, and specialty products like high-quality lubricants and other synthetics that are designed to increase efficiency in transportation and industrial sectors. A lot of these products are directly sold to the corporate customers like airports or industrial corporations. All those that are tailored towards private users get sold via the last link in the entire value chain. ExxonMobil's enormous network of ExxonMobil and Esso gas stations across the world. Most of the 21,000 gas stations operate under a franchise agreement and serve as a local selling point for ExxonMobil's products. At those gas stations, people can buy ExxonMobil's gas, ExxonMobil's diesel, ExxonMobil's motor oil. You get the idea. We've mentioned earlier that chemical products are an entire segment of their own. That's because the segment is so big that it accounts for 1/3 of ExxonMobil's earnings. The division is responsible for the manufacturing and sale of various petrochemicals. Butyl rubber, for example, is used for plastic explosives like C4, surround sound systems, sporting equipment like footballs, rubber stoppers in vials and bottles, for tires and even window insulation. So we've seen how ExxonMobil became the giant they are today, and we looked at their current operations and income streams. But what does the future hold for an oil and gas company, given the struggle against climate change and the rise of electric vehicles? Well, firstly, as we have seen, Exxon produces a lot more than just fuel for passenger cars. The industry will still need lubricants, the world will still need rubber, and EVs still need tires. So it's quite clear that the oil and gas business isn't going away for decades to come. But even so, by now Exxon has realized that at some point they will need to shift their business away from fossil fuels alone. Therefore, they are starting to branch out into several different, more sustainable fields of operation. Firstly, they're funding considerable research for renewable fuels like biodiesel or synthetic gasoline. These renewable fuels might serve as a quick substitute for oil-based fuels, as they can simply be used with existing combustion engines. So far, they are very expensive to produce, and they come with their own set of problems. But maybe Exxon will figure out a way to make them work. In parallel, ExxonMobil is looking to get into the lithium mining business to profit off the EV trend as well. They already have lots of experience in mining through their coal operations, and they also have lots of experience working internationally, so this should be a cakewalk for them. Up next, ExxonMobil is positioning itself as one of the largest players in the carbon capture and storage business and is heavily investing into corresponding technology. And finally, they're looking to scale up their hydrogen production business, starting with their refining facility at Baytown, Texas. Here, they look to convert natural gas into hydrogen at an industrial scale, beginning in 2027. One issue with hydrogen production of that kind, however, is that it produces lots of CO2 emissions during the refining process. What's Exxon going to do about that? Well, we already said they're getting into the carbon capture and storage business, right? So obviously, they're going to integrate their different segments just like they did with their oil and gas operations, and they're going to capture and store the CO2 from their hydrogen operations themselves. Will all of this work out for them? Nobody knows for certain, but it will sure be exciting to find out in the years to come. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like below. Until then, take care and be kind to each other.